Good evening, everybody who's joining us here this evening from all over the world. At the end of his life, Yaakov Avinu summons all of his children, all of his sons, and he tells them the famous words, Hikafzu v'shimu b'nei Yaakov. Gather, children of Yaakov, and listen to me. He speaks to each of them with astonishing candidness and profound vision. He begins with Reuven, his oldest son. Let us listen to what Yaakov tells Reuven. Reuven, B'choiriyata, you are my oldest child. Koichi, my power, V'reishis oini, the beginning of my might. Yeser se'eis, v'yeser oz. Preeminent in status and preeminent in strength. But pachas kamayim, you have been impetuous like water. Al toisar, hence you will not benefit from these advantages. Ki alisa mishkevei avicha, you ascended on the bed of your father. Az chilalta yitzui Allah, you have violated the mattress upon which you ascended. According to Rashi, what Yaakov is telling Reuven are sharp, powerful words. This is his message. Reuven, you're my oldest son. In that sense, you captured my might, my power. Koichi reishis oini. Yeser seis, you're preeminent in status and you're preeminent in strength, means, according to Rashi, not only was the gift of B'choira conferred upon you, not only were you given the privilege of being the first and the oldest of the first Jewish family of Yaakov's sons, but furthermore upon you was conferred the gift of priesthood and the gift of royalty, Kohuna and Malchus. Yeser sa'as, the gift, Yeser sa'es, the gift of priesthood, and Yeser az, the gift of Malchus, of kingship, of leadership, was given to you, Reuven. In other words, Reuven was supposed to be the father of the tribe that would not only represent the B'choira, the firstborn child with all the privileges that the firstborn child has, but more, Reuven was supposed to carry within himself the identity of priesthood. From his tribe would descend the Kohanim, the priests who would serve in the Beis Hamikdash and would represent the spiritual personalities of the Jewish people, who bless the Jewish people, who teach the Jewish people, who represent them in the temple and so forth. In addition to that, Reuven was also supposed to be the person who carried within himself the gene, the quality of royalty of Malchus. But as we know, in reality, something else happened. In some instances, Reuven is still considered the B'chor, the firstborn son. But Kohuna, priesthood, was given to Levi. Royalty was given to Yehuda. Thus Yaakov continues. Pachas kamayim, you were impetuous like water, al toisar. Thus you forfeited these advantages of priesthood and royalty. Where has Reuven been impetuous? Where do we see Reuven's impulsiveness, his haste, which Yaakov is addressing at this moment? So he says, Alisa mishkevei avicha, you ascended upon the bed of your father. Our rabbis in Medrash give two explanations to the episode Yaakov is referring to. The first takes us back 47 years earlier, after Rachel passes away. Rachel passed away when Yaakov was approximately 100 years old. Now Yaakov is speaking before he's passing. He's 147 years old. And after Rachel passes away, something very disturbing occurs with Reuven. The pasuk says in Parshas Vayishlach, Vayelech Reuven, Reuven went, Vayishkav as Bila Pilegesh Aviv, and he lied with Bila, the maid of his father, the concubine of his father. Rashi, based on the Medrash, gives us the tradition, the backdrop of what happened. Yaakov Avinu had his bed in the tent of Rachel. When Yaakov Avinu passes away, when Rachel Imenu when Rachel passes away, Yaakov takes his bed and he places it in the tent of Rachel's maid, Bilhah. Reuven, feeling the pain of his mother, decides that something has to be done. Throughout their life together, we know Yaakov favored Rachel over Leah. Vayehav gam es Rachel mileah. The pasuk told us in Vayetze, he loved Rachel more than Leah. Now Rachel passes away. Reuven asks himself, is it fear for my mother that Yaakov's bed should be in Bilhah's tent, in a maid's tent? So he takes Yaakov's bed and he places it in his mother's tent, in Leah's tent. Yaakov is very upset about what Reuven did, interfering in a very intimate aspect of Yaakov Avinu's life. At this moment, 47 years later, Yaakov reminds him of that incident. Alisa mishkevei avicha, you ascended upon the bed of your father. You interfered into your father's intimate life. Thus, this impetuous quality causes you to forfeit the gift of royalty and the gift of priesthood. But there is another explanation in Medrash, what Yaakov is referring to, and it's actually another incident that occurred 10 years before the first incident. This happens one day when they're still living in Mesopotamia in the home of Lavan, of the father of Rachel and Leah, and it goes back to Parshas Vayetze. So this occurred around 55 or 57 years ago. Vayelech Reuven b'meiktzir chitim. Reuven once went out in the time of the harvesting of the wheat, and he found dudoyim, he found a mandrake plant in the field. And he brings some of these mandrakes to Leah, his mother. According to the commentators, these mandrakes had either the quality of inducing fertility, or according to other commentators, they possessed an extraordinary fragrance and aroma that was very appealing and caused attraction, and there are other interpretations. So Reuven brings the mandrake plant to Leah, his mother. Rachel is present at the moment, and she tells her sister, give me some of the mandrakes that your son Reuven brought. Leah responds and says, is it not enough that you have taken my husband? Will you now take also the mandrakes? So Rachel says, you know what? Let Yaakov come to you this evening. Leah agrees, and when Yaakov comes home that evening from the field, Leah says, I have rented you. Sachar scharticha, so to speak. I have been privileged to have you this evening in lieu of the mandrakes of my son which went to Rachel. Yaakov was with Leah that evening, as a result of which she conceived and gave birth to a son who would be named Yisachar. This, says the Medrash, Yaakov is reminding Reuven 6 decades later, Alisa mishkevei avicha, once again you interfered with the intimate life of your father as a result of what you have done, bringing the mandrakes to Leah, resulting in a row and a conflict between the two sisters, resulting in the fact that Yaakov that evening went to Leah instead of his previous plan to come to Rachel, was a result of Reuven bringing the mandrakes home. As a result of this, says Yaakov, this impetuous quality, this hasteful characteristic, this impulsiveness like water, causes you to forfeit the gift of malchus, of royalty, and of priesthood. This, however, is intriguing. It's also disturbing. Because what is so fascinating about this explanation in Yaakov's words is that precisely in both of these instances, Reuven is acting out of compassion, out of sensitivity. His actions are a result of concern, of feeling the pain of his mother Leah. Reuven, it seems, as the oldest of the boys, carries the burden of his mom. He endures her experience. His name, Reuven, was given to him because Leah said, Ra Hashem ki snua, anoichi, God saw that I am disliked. Reuven felt it, Reuven experienced it. Reuven was profoundly perturbed by it. After Rachel's death, he is the only one who takes a stand. And he goes into the tent of Bilhah and he removes Yaakov's bed. In the case of the mandrakes, when he is in the field, he's a young boy, but who is he thinking about? He's thinking about Leah. It's true that the end result in both of these actions was counterproductive. It's true that Reuven could have done it a little differently. In the first instance, instead of taking the matter into his own hands, he could have breached the subject with Yaakov. He could have had an open conversation with his father, maybe with Rachel's maid Bilhah, and brought up the issue with them, telling Yaakov what Leah is experiencing, asking Yaakov to do things differently. Instead, he took the matter into his own hands and the result was negative. But his intentions, his heart, lie in a positive place. In the other incident with the mandrakes, the same is true. Reuven could have done it differently. When Reuven came home with the mandrakes and he saw that Rachel was present there, knowing how difficult it was for Leah with Rachel, he could have waited. He could have waited till Rachel left Leah's tent and then presented the mandrakes to Leah. Instead, he acted in haste, in impulsiveness, but again, from concern, from a good place. The result was a row. The consequence was a conflict, the only recorded conflict between Rachel and Leah. But the motivation was positive, noble, sensitive, compassionate. And yet, notwithstanding the fact that in both instances Reuven has very sensitive and noble intentions, he forfeits Yeser Se'ez v'Yeser Oz, the gift of royalty and the gift of priesthood. But this really becomes disturbing when we reflect more on the story. From the 11 sons of Yaakov, who was the one who received the gift of malchus, of royalty, in lieu of Reuven? Who did he forfeit this gift to? As we advance in Yaakov's words, we come to Yehuda. Yaakov tells Yehuda, Gurarye Yehuda, you're a young cub, Yehuda, Judah. Miteref beni Elisa. From being a man of prey, my son, you have ascended. You have exonerated yourself from being teref, from preying on somebody else. And thus, la yasur shevet mi Yehuda, the scepter will not be removed from Yehuda, u'mechoyku k'bein raglav, and the ruler from between his legs. Ad ki yavai shiloi, till Mashiach comes, v'lo yikas hamim, he will gather the nations. At this moment, Yaakov is telling Yehuda, you were given the gift of malchus. A ruler will not depart from your family. Malchus belongs to the tribe of Yehuda. Indeed, we know the greatest king of Israel, King David HaMelech, was a descendant of Yehuda. His son Shloimeh, naturally a descendant of Yehuda. We are told that Mashiach is going to be Mibeis David, from the home of David, a descendant of Yehuda. According to the Ramban, according to Nachmanides in this week's Parsha, the Chashmonai family was punished for the fact that they liberated the Beis Hamikdash, which was great, but they also gave themselves the gift of Malchus. The Chashmonai family, who were Koyanim from the tribe of Levi, became the kings, and kingship, says the Ramban, belongs to Yehuda. There is even an interesting insight that's brought in Sfarim. It's been refuted by many others, but the insight is an interesting one. Why is there no Masechta Chanukah? Why is there no tractate for Chanukah in the entire Talmud? There's a Masechta Megillah to tell us the laws of reading the Megillah on Purim. Chanukah has many halachas. Why did Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the author and compiler of the Mishnah, not prepare a Masechta for Chanukah? And one of the explanations is, and as I said, this has been argued excessively, and many disagree with this, including the Rebbe, who would never accepted this explanation. But the explanation is an interesting one. Rabbi, the compiler of the Mishnah, was of course a descendant of Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. He was from Beis David. And in protest to what the Chashmonaim have done, to take the gift of Malchus for themselves, he excluded them from Mishnayos. He didn't include Chanukah in the Mishnayos. There are other explanations given for them, but this again demonstrates the point that Malchus royalty was given to Yehuda. Why? Yaakov says 3 words. Miterev b'ni Elisa. You have ascended from being a man of prey. What is Yehuda referring to? Rashi gives us 2 explanations. 2 episodes have occurred in the life of Yehuda. And in both of them, Yehuda has demonstrated himself as a man who elevated himself from being a taref, from preying, from devouring another human being. The first incident is, of course, the incident with Yosef in Parshas Vayeshev. Yosef approaches his brothers who dislike him, and they plot to kill him. Nobody is present, nobody will see. They will kill Yosef. What happens at that moment? Reuven hears the plot, and he tells them, do not kill him. Al tishbechu dam, don't pour his blood, instead throw him into an empty well. But do not kill him with your bare hands. And the Torah specifies his inner motivation. By the way, rarely in Chumash do we learn of the inner motivations of people. In this instance, the Chumash tells us, Laman hatziloisai miyadam. Reuven wanted to save him, Yosef, from their hands. Lahashiva elaviv, to return Yosef to his father Yaakov. Yosef approaches his brothers. They remove his tunic. They throw him into an empty well. Haboyrek ein by mayim. The well is empty. There's no water in there. The Shvatim sit down to eat bread. And when they see a caravan of Arabs traveling to Egypt, Yehuda, for the first time, speaks up. This is the first time we hear Yehuda speak. Vayomer Yehuda Elechav, Yehuda tells his brothers, Ma betza ki narei gachinu v'chisinu es damai. What profit will we gain from killing our brother and covering his blood? Or as the Targum puts it, Ma mamoin nishane lana arei niktol yasachuna. How much money, what money do we stand to gain by killing our brother? Why don't we sell him? Let us sell him to the Yishmaelim, to the Arabs, and let us not kill him. Ki achinu psareinu, who ultimately he is our brother, he is our flesh. The brothers obey Yehuda's advice. They lift Yosef from the empty well. They sell him to these Arabs, and Yosef arrives in Egypt. Reuven comes back to the well. Yosef is not there. He rents his clothes. He comes back to his brothers and he says, Hayela deinenu, the child is not here. Va'ana nivo, where do I go? What do I do with myself? His plan was not fulfilled. Yosef wasn't saved. Yosef was sold. The rest is history. Yosef would become prime minister of Egypt. We all know the end of the story. When Yaakov gets from his children a tunic drenched in blood, it's the tunic of Yosef. He says 3 words, Taref Taraf Yosef. Yosef was devoured. Chayerah Chalaso, a wild beast ate him up. Decades later, 4 decades later, Yaakov will present this story to Yehuda. Miterev b'ni Elisa. Yehuda, I accused you of devouring Yosef. In my mind, I felt that you laid your hands on him. He knew Yehuda. Yehuda was aggressive. Yehuda was powerful. Yehuda was a leader. Yehuda is the lion. The lion is the king of the jungles, the king of the animals. Gorare Yehuda. Yehuda is the king of the Jewish people. He will be the leader, the melech. He was given the gift of kingship. Yaakov suspected Yehuda in killing Yosef. Now I found out Yosef is alive. I'm here in Egypt with Yosef. I have seen Yosef. I have met Yosef. I encountered Yosef after so many years, after 22 years. 22 years they were separated. Then Yaakov comes to Egypt and he lives there for another 7 years. For another 17 years. This is 40 years later. 4 decades later. Miterev b'ni Elisa, you have exonerated yourself from the status I once accused you with, that you devoured Yosef. Miterev, you did not devour Yosef. On the contrary, you saved him. Yosef was in an empty well. In the well he could have died from starvation, from dehydration, from noxious fumes. The Chazal say, the Gemara says in Shabbos, there was no water in the well, but there were serpents in the well, there were scorpions in the well. Yosef could have easily died there. Who made sure that Yosef did not die? Yehuda sold him as a slave to the Egyptians, but he did not die in the pit, in the bar. This is the first interpretation in the words Miterev b'ni Elisa, in the credit that Yaakov is giving Yehuda for liberating himself from a man of prey. On the contrary, he was Yosef's savior. This is very disturbing. Let's reflect on this for a moment. Because of this episode with Yosef, royalty was given to Yehuda. It was taken from Reuven and it was given to Yehuda. Ribono shel olam, in this very episode, Reuven comes across as the person far more caring, far more sensitive, far more noble, surpassing Yehuda far and beyond. Let us examine Reuven's actions. Let us examine Yehuda's actions. The tribes wanted to kill Yosef. Comes Reuven and says, don't kill your brother. Throw him into the well. They throw him into the well, and the Torah tells us, you know why Reuven did this? Because he wanted to save Yosef. He wanted to give Yosef back to his father. He wanted to save Yosef and bring him back to Yaakov Avinu. What about Yehuda? Yehuda didn't even think of liberating Yosef. All Yehuda did was, instead of letting him die in the pit, he sells him as a slave, depriving him from his liberty for eternity. Supposedly at that moment. Could you compare? Furthermore, listen to Yehuda's argument why they should not let him die in the well. What is Yehuda's argument? He speaks nothing about morality, righteousness, sensitivity. Ma betza. What is there to gain? What is the profit of letting a kid die? Let us sell him. Let us at least sell him. That is Yehuda's attitude. These are callous words. They're very surprising words. And yet, for this very episode, in which Reuven stands head and shoulders above Yehuda, Yehuda is gaining the quality of royalty, of leadership, of Malchus. At whose expense? At Reuven's expense. How do we understand this? But there's another interpretation in Miterev b'ni Elisa. And this is a different story which Yaakov was alluding to. Namely, a story that happened shortly after the sale of Yosef. It's the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Briefly, we know the story in Parshas Vayeshev. Yehuda had 3 sons, Er, Einan, and Shelah. Er married a woman named Tamar. He died childless. According to the system of Yibum, levirate marriages, Tamar would now marry her brother-in-law. According to Torah, when a woman is widowed, her husband passes away and they never had children, there is the halacha of Yibum. She marries, she is bound up in a relationship with her brother-in-law. The child of the second marriage will be the legacy, the continuity of the first husband who never bare children. So Tamar naturally marries Einan. Einon also dies prematurely. According to the laws of Yibum, Tamar is now bound to the third son, Shelah. Yehuda accuses Tamar in killing his sons, rather accusing his sons, so he doesn't want Tamar to marry his third son. He doesn't want to lose his third child. So Tamar is in a very difficult predicament. She is bound up in a relationship with Shelah, the third son, but Yehuda doesn't want to marry her to Shelah. Now Tamar here devises quite a plan. As the Ramban explains, before Matan Torah, before the Torah was given, Yibum, levirate marriage, did not only apply to a brother-in-law. It was applicable to any member of the family. Hence, Tamar can also fulfill the obligation of Yibum through her father-in-law, Yehuda, who was also a widower at the time. His wife died. Tamar disguises herself as a harlot. She engages in a relationship with Yehuda, as the Torah describes. She becomes pregnant. 3 months later, Yehuda is told that your daughter-in-law has engaged in promiscuous relationships, but she was bound up in a marriage to Shelah. Yehuda says she must be burnt. Being taken out to the stake, she sends a message to Yehuda, recognize to whom these items belong. When Yehuda engaged her in a relationship, he gave her collateral. He gave her his seal, his cord, and his staff. She now sends these 3 items to Yehuda. Hakerna. Recognize to whom these belong. Yehuda takes one look at the 3 items, and he realizes immediately what happened. He realizes, number 1, he put her in an impossible situation. She couldn't marry a stranger, but she was not allowed to marry Shelah, and the woman wanted a child. Number 2, he realized that she engaged in a relationship with him, her father-in-law, according to the laws of Yibum. Number 3, he realized the fashion in which she communicated this message. She did not humiliate him publicly. In a discreet fashion, she sent a message. Recognize to whom these items belong, because he is the father of these children. Vayaker Yehuda, Yehuda recognized. Vayomer, and he said, Satka, she's just me, many. It was me. I am the one who is responsible for these children. Of course, Tamar is liberated from her horrible fate. Years later, 4 decades later, Yaakov refers to this story. Miterev b'ni Alisa. From potentially devouring a person, you exonerated yourself. Yehuda at that point came this close to sentencing an innocent pregnant woman to death. He came this close to killing a person who did not deserve it, who was in fact righteous, noble, virtuous. But at the last moment he had the courage to confess, to say, Tzatka mimeni, I am the one who did it. I am responsible. She is innocent. Ki al kain lo nisatiya l'Shelah b'ni, I am guilty. I did not marry her to Shelah. You exonerated yourself, Yehuda, and thus you were given the gift of royalty. Here again, we are deeply disturbed. And we're disturbed for the following reason. Because of this moment, Yehuda confessing his wrongdoing and saving Tamar, he is given the gift of Malchus. It is taken from Reuven and given to Yehuda. But one moment. Let's go back to the Yosef story. The Torah tells us in Vayeshev, Reuven came back to the well, and he saw that Yosef was not there. He rents his clothes and he comes to his brother and he says, Hayeled einenu va'ana aniva. Why was Reuven not present when they sold Yosef? What happened? The Torah doesn't tell us, but it gives us a clue. It tells us that after they sold Yosef, what did they do? Vayeshvu lech. I'm sorry, after they put Yosef into the pit, into the well, what did they do? Vayeshvu lech. They sat down to eat bread. Why does the Torah mention this irrelevant detail? To explain why Reuven was not there. You know why Reuven was not there? What does the Medrash say, and Rashi quotes it? He was fasting. You know why he was fasting? To repent for the fact that he interfered into his father's intimacy. How long ago? 9 years